Now, I want to ask you something because on my channel, we talk a lot about dick size. Now, you're the expert here. So perhaps you can tell us once and for all, how important is dick size for a woman? And like, how big is too big? How small is too small? Who should worry? What can they do about it?
This is a great question because a lot of my subscribers and clients are really worried about it as well. And I love how you phrased the question, which is not, is it important, yes or no? The question is, how important is it?
Yep.
Because there's a great Nietzsche quote, which is, everything matters, nothing is important. And I think dick size matters. How important it is depends on a lot of other factors, and most specifically the woman who is receiving this dick. One of the things that we miss, I actually just did a video about this, is that depending on how you slice it, there are either 4 or 6 or 8 different kinds of penises and 8 different kinds of vaginas, or 12. I mean, you can break them down into a lot of different categories. There's 2 or 3 different kinds of clitorises alone, right? And then that's only if we're looking at hooded, not hooded. If we're also looking at like the length of shaft, if we're also looking to proximity to vaginal opening, we can get to 8 to 12 different kinds of clitoris. And then of course, just like all human traits, we could say that maybe there's 5 major eye colors, right? But then you're going to have folks whose eyes are like a little green and a little gray and a little blue, right? So
Right.
just as with all human traits, we can classify them and categorize them and, subdivide them into a certain number of types. And the thing about vaginas in particular is that each of those different types has a sort of a different preference for shape and size of penis. And for some of those types, shape matters way more than size. For some of those types, a penis that curves to the left or the right is going to be way more pleasurable than a penis that is straight, even if they're all the same size. For different types of vaginas that are like very shallow, they're going to want a penis that isn't too long, because if they're shallow and their cervix is very close to their vaginal opening, let's say and it expands once you get turned on and start having sex. So it could start about 3 inches, but there are women for whom their vaginal canal never gets longer than 5.5 inches. So if you have a 6-inch penis, you're going to cause them pain whenever you're all the way inside of them. And so they're not going to be able to take a lot of thrusting, or if you're going to thrust, you're going to have to come up with a system like a cock ring that only lets you thrust to that 5 inches, right? So there's no magic fit. There's no magic number. And I want men to hear this because they've been told that just bigger is better across the board. Longer, girthier, that's preferable. Like at least one of those 2 dimensions, right?
Yep.
And there are going to be some vaginas and some women who can take really, really big penises, and they notably like porn stars in particular, right? They train to do that, and they're built to do that. And there's going to be some bodies, some vaginas, some women who really prefer like a shorter, curved dick. There's going to be women who prefer a very short but very girthy dick, and they really like to grind. Depending on how there's good data that shows that the closer the clitoris is located to the vaginal opening, the more likely a woman is able to experience orgasm through penetration without direct clitoral stimulation, right?
Huh. So she's basically feeling it through the penetration because it's closer to the opening, yeah?
Yes. And it's not, again, as a sex coach, I'd like to invite that women can reach orgasm through penetration, not just through the location of their clitoris. You can train the inside of your body. You can really sensitize. You can develop a really strong pelvic floor and a lot of sensitivity. You can work on your mental and emotional turn on, and you can have orgasms without anything touching you. You can have orgasms through someone just fingertip touching you. You can have orgasms through your nipples. You're not if your clitoris is very far away from your vaginal opening, that doesn't mean you can't have vaginal orgasms through penetration alone. I really believe that with time and effort and intention and maybe some coaching, you can pretty much experience just about anything that you want to experience that's reasonable for your body to experience when it comes to sex. So it just doesn't happen overnight. Like I said, it takes time, but it's a skill, just like most other things. Being able to orgasm is a skill. So to come back to penis size, it matters. It's not necessarily important. Certainly, there is a sort of cultural preference for larger penises. Individual preferences will vary, and until we have a more thorough understanding and the different types of vaginas, different types of penises, it's not really a common subject. It hasn't been studied a whole lot. I don't know. There's just probably not a lot of money funding that kind of research. I don't know why you necessarily would. I mean, I'm curious about it. I'd love to do a study on it, but it's very difficult to know, like what kind of vagina you're with and what her preferences are going to be. Maybe, hopefully, she knows what her preferences are. But there are plenty of women out there that are just like as brainwashed as men and are like, oh, bigger is better, even though maybe it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. So the interesting part is, I'm pretty sure the guys watching right now, they were hoping to kind of get a number. Like, she's like, oh, she's gonna say 6 inches is big, 7 inches is big, and there isn't one, and like, I guess it's kind of difficult for them to accept the idea that there isn't one, because it really depends on the girl. And some girls are like extremely tight, and even if you're below average, it's gonna be borderline painful for her. And other girls, they can accommodate whatever size you have. So it's really gonna depend on the girl. But regardless, let's say if you had to guess, like, a preference that would be ideal for the majority of the girls, what would that be?
Well, so actually data has been collected on this preference. So we have good science on it. And what the science really shows is that women have 2 different preferences. For a one-night stand, they would select a penis that's about 2 degrees larger than average, maybe 3. And for a long-term partner, they choose a penis that is just slightly larger than average. So the good news is that average is what almost all men have, right, with variations. And that is the preference that are slightly larger. And I'm not talking like a half an inch larger. I'm talking about like, within a centimeter. That would actually be the preference for most women. So average penis size depends on who you're asking and how you measure and who collected the data. Let's say somewhere between 5.5 and 6 inches. And it turns out that that's actually what the majority of women would prefer for a partner, not for, okay, they want to have like an experience, a one-night stand. Like, what would it be like to be with this giant penis? They're curious, but that is not what they want for someone that they're going to have a regular sexual relationship with. So guys, if you're in the range of average, good news, you are the average woman's preference. You're the average, like, this should be good news for most guys.